And let me give you a great example. Okay, here's a true example. In Texas, the state observes the latest edition of the NEC, so 2023. You could have a jurisdiction that may be on a lesser version, because they're allowed, the municipalities are allowed to go to a lesser version or a later version or an earlier version, or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, you could have the state on 2023. You could have a specific locality on 2020. It's possible. All right. Now, if that jurisdiction has an adopted rule in that jurisdiction that you can use non-metallic sheath cable outside, let's say they have it. If something happens, somebody gets hurt, guess what's going to happen? The state will step in. If that's a state rule, which is Texas is, the Texas will say, you know what? I don't care what your jurisdiction says. The rule in Texas is we're on the 2023 NEC. The 2023 NEC says that you cannot use non-metallic sheath cable in a wet or damp location. Who do you think, as far as the electrician's concerned, is going to win this fight? Sadly, the state. The electrician says, wait a minute, I did what the jurisdiction said do. I'm immune from it. Sorry, you're not immune from it. So depending on your state and your rules, and you may argue with me, you're looking at this right now, blue in the face, right? You're probably arguing with Angry Sparky, and you're blue in the face. And you're going, but my jurisdiction says it's okay. You do you, boo. I'm just telling you what the code says. And if you feel like it'll never have a problem, then you do you. But I'm just telling you what the code says. So that is what the NEC says. Okay? All right. With that said, the next thing that people say is, hey, Paul, is it okay for me to take that cable, NM cable, non-metallic sheath cable, or if you're Southwire, it's romex, which is, again, just a trade name for romex, which they got from General Cable, which they bought from Rome Cable Company or Rome Wire. So it has a long legacy. It all means non-metallic sheath cable, okay? So you may say, well, Paul, I had somebody tell me that I can rip those conductors out of that cable assembly that is a listed UL 719 cable, that I can take those conductors out of it, and then I can use those conductors inside of liquid tight or in some other type of wiring method. That's what I'm hearing all over social media. Well, I just finished a conversation with my counterpart at a large manufacturer of wiring cable, as I represent a large manufacturer of wiring cable, and neither of us will put any markings on those conductors that are inside of our non-metallic sheath cable. One, because we don't have to, and I'll show you that in the standard, okay? Because we mark all the information on the jacket that's extruded over those conductors, because we intend you to use that non-metallic sheath cable as a cable assembly. We don't intend for you to strip things out of it and use that. We make wire for that. We have wire that complies to UL 83 that does require the various markings on it. So we make both. So we choose to not put the markings on it. Now, some people say, Paul, it's semantics. Won't that wire last forever? It might. Problem is, it's not right. And you do what you want to do. But I'm just telling you the way the rules work. So with that said, let's go look at the UL standard, because people question it. So here's the UL standard that we're dealing with right now, okay? And I will go on and adjust this because I want to make sure that we get all of this in here, okay? So let me go on and adjust this down so we can get it all in here. Okay, so here we go. We got it all in here. And while it may be difficult for you to see, I can jump up a little bit in size and try to make this more palatable. Okay, so now we're in what's called UL 719. This is the, and let me show you that, so in case anybody says I'm not, there it is, 719, and this is the standard for non-metallic sheath cable, okay? All right, so let's go down real quick. I will take you back down to the construction. All right, so here's what we're interested in, the insulation, not the sheathing, okay? That's the sheathing on the outside of it. That's sheathing, that's never insulation. Y'all know that. The inner conductors. Now, notice what it says. It says both before and after assembly onto finished cable, it said the insulation employed on the circuit conductors shall comply with A or B, and the insulation employed on the control or signal conductors shall comply with C. Okay, so that's for that new NMPCS where you have both 0 to 10 and the power in the same cable assembly. Very rare for non-metallic. I don't know when you would really want to need that because everything's Wi-Fi now. But we do that with MC cable. It's called MCPCS. I hold various patents on that. So I'm very intimate with that kind of construction. But it is available in NM if you want. It's just that really who would use it today because of all the Wi-Fi in a dwelling. But anyway, it's available if you want it. Now, let's look here. So notice that it says THHN construction. So I have two choices of the insulation types to use in my non-metallic sheet cable. I can use TW construction or I can use THHN construction. It says the jacketed insulation for a type NM or NMC cable shall have a nylon or similar jacket and shall comply with the thickness and the other applicable requirements for THHN thermoplastic insulated wire without any surface markings of THHN or the -B or any ampacity or temperature ratings. So right there, we meet the construction rules, okay? So far equivalent. So sometimes people twist when we say THHN equivalent. They don't understand that we're talking about the construction equivalent. So it has to have the same thickness of insulation, has the same thickness, typically 4 mils of the nylon, which is not insulation. It's a covering or a jacketing over top of the insulation. That's what we're meeting, okay? And that's what most all of us manufacturers will meet, okay, in that application, all right? But let's go a little further because, again, this is quite interesting stuff that people seem to still today don't understand, okay? Now, let's go on a little more. So then you've got B, okay? So B is TW construction, but it's just insulation. It doesn't have any nylon coating on it. Now, why would manufacturers choose a THHN type of construction over a TW? Well, the basic obvious reasons for that is we make a whole lot more of THHN/THWN. So we make a whole lot more of it. And we sell a lot of non-metallic sheet cable, but we sell a lot of THHN, THWN-2 that requires the markings. So we can use the same product. It's just instead of putting it through the markings, we save on all the ink. So we don't have to put the ink on it. And ink is expensive, especially when you're running millions and millions and millions of feet of it. So the standard allows for us to not do that. So we don't do it, okay? Now, could I, as a manufacturer, use a pure THHN inside of it that does have the markings on it, that has the THHN on it, the ampacity, the temperature ratings, and all that? Absolutely, I could. But why would I? Because I don't need to. I'm saving money. And typically, a non-metallic sheet product is a lower tier product, okay? So we're trying to control the margins. Dude, we're in business too, okay? It all makes sense. Doesn't mean it's any less safe. It just is what we're allowed to do. So back to the rules here. Okay, now for NM only, so this one right here talks about complies with the requirements without any surface marking. Again, it says for NM or NMC cable, the insulation material shall be dry location. Listen up, folks. Dry location PVC that complies with the requirements for THHN insulation without any surface markings of the ampacity or temperature rating, okay? The surface marking of -B is optional anyway, so we choose not to do that. And of course, it also ends up telling you what? You have to meet all these tensile elongations, physical properties, all this stuff has to be met. Now, for NM only, so we're not talking about NMC, which, by the way, NMC is a non-metallic that's used in a corrosive environment. Nobody makes that anymore. It's basically equivalent to UF cable, which is basically what you really want to use if you have a corrosive environment, right? So you don't want to use NMC. Nobody makes it, okay? So that's why you still see NMC in the standard, but nobody uses it. If you have those locations, then you would use UFB for that, which again is UF, underground feeder, but it's also for branch circuits as well. So don't let that confuse you just because its nomenclature is UF, okay? All right, so